I'm 92 years old, and there's a photograph that's lived in my wallet for over half a century. Folded so many times, the crease has worn the image nearly in half. Nobody's seen it. Not my wife. 41 years married before she passed. Not my children. Oh, not a single living soul. Not in 44 years. I took it out of a drawer in 1982 and put it in my wallet, and it's been there ever since, right behind my driver's license, close enough to touch every single day and far enough from anyone's eyes that it might as well have been buried. I was 19 years old in Korea, winter of 1952, when that photograph got taken. I didn't think much of it then. Just a moment, quick as anything, gone as fast as it happened. It took me 30 years to understand what that photograph really meant, and another 44 to work up the courage to let anybody else understand it too. I grew up in a holler outside a little town in eastern Kentucky, coal country, same as half the boys I served with, it seemed like. My daddy worked the mines till his back gave out, and I figured that'd be my road too, until Korea called me up at 18. Winter of 52, our unit was dug in along a ridge that changed hands more times than any of us could keep straight. Cold enough to freeze the marrow in your bones. Though nothing like what the boys at Chosin went through 2 winters before us. I heard those stories same as everyone. And I never once complained about my own cold after hearing what that cold had been. There was a fella in my unit, radio operator, had himself one of those little cameras. Contraband more or less, though nobody much enforced that rule by the time we were dug in that long. He took pictures here and there, most of them nothing special. Boys smoking, boys playing cards, mud and boredom mostly. Same as any war between the shooting parts. One picture he took, though. That one turned out different than all the rest. There'd been a brief lull, a few hours, where both sides seemed to have agreed without agreeing to just stop for a spell. Happened sometimes, stranger than you'd think. During that lull, a Korean woman came up near our position. Not a soldier, just a local woman, maybe 30 years old, carrying a little girl, no more than 4 or 5. Both of them thin in a way that told you everything about what that war had done to people who never asked to be a part of it. She didn't speak English. We didn't speak Korean. Not beyond a handful of words we'd picked up. But she held that little girl up toward us, and one of the men understood before any of us. She wanted food for the child, and whatever mercy we could spare, we gave what we had. Not much. C rations, a chocolate bar somebody had saved back. The little girl ate like she hadn't eaten in days, which she probably hadn't. That radio operator, the one with the camera, snapped a picture right then. Me kneeling down at that little girl's level, holding out what I had, her mother standing behind her, all of us caught in that one strange, quiet moment in the middle of a war that mostly wasn't quiet at all. I didn't think about that photograph much in the years right after the war. I came home to Kentucky in 53, married a girl named Ruth I'd known since grade school, started a family, took work at a hardware store in town that I eventually came to own myself. The photograph sat in a shoebox with a handful of others from the war, snapshots I'd bring out maybe once a year, if that, mostly when one of my own kids got curious and asked what it was like over there. I never had much to say about the fighting parts, but that one photograph, the little girl, I'd show it sometimes, tell them a short version. Feels good, doing something decent in a bad place. That was about the size of what I let them know. Then in 1982, a letter came from a relief organization of all things, working to reunite Korean War orphans and families separated during the conflict with anyone who might remember them. Somehow, through channels I still don't fully understand, they'd traced that photograph. Must have circulated more than I ever knew, through military archives, through channels I never asked about. Back to me. The letter told me that little girl had died. Years before, as a young woman, complications from malnutrition she'd suffered as a child during the war. She never made it past 26. I sat with that letter a long time before I told anybody. And in the end, I never told anybody at all. Not Ruth, not my children. I read it maybe a dozen times in the quiet of the hardware store office. After closing, trying to understand what I was supposed to do with information like that. There wasn't anything to do with it, really. That was the hard truth I came to. A little girl I'd helped for maybe 10 minutes on a cold ridge in 1952 had grown up in a broken country, struggled the whole rest of her short life with what that war had done to her before she was even old enough to understand it, and died young because of it. I took that photograph out of the shoebox that same week, put it in my wallet instead. I don't fully know why, even now. Maybe I felt like keeping her close in some small way was the least I could do for a life that had ended too soon after a moment where I'd tried just for 10 minutes to make things a little less terrible for her. Or maybe I just couldn't stand the thought of that photograph living in a box with other photographs, ordinary as anything, when what it held felt like it deserved to be carried, not stored. 44 years, that photograph stayed in my wallet. Through raising 3 children, through Ruth's illness and passing in 2011, through moving out of the house we'd raised our family in and into someplace smaller. Every wallet I ever owned in all that time, I transferred that photograph first, before anything else, careful as handling glass. People ask me sometimes over the years what that folded up old picture was. A grandchild, curious, going through my wallet, looking for $1 for the ice cream truck, or a doctor's office clerk glimpsing it when I pulled out my insurance card. I'd just say, "Old war photo," and fold it back before anybody could really look close. And something in my voice must have told people not to push further, because nobody ever did. I don't know if that was protecting the memory or protecting myself from having to explain it out loud. Some days I think it was both. The crease down the middle got worn, soft as cloth over all those years, folding and unfolding. The little girl's face on one side, mine on the other, that Korean mother standing behind her, whose name I never even learned. 2 months ago, my great-granddaughter came to visit. She's 12, sharp as anything, doing a school project on family history, and she asked me, straightforward as only a 12-year-old can be, if I had anything from the old days she could use. I don't know what made me do it. 44 years of keeping that wallet closed to everybody, and something about her face, so much like Ruth's at that age in old photographs, made me reach for it before I'd even decided to. I unfolded that photograph slow, careful, 44 years of creases protesting the movement, and I set it down on the kitchen table in front of her. "Who is that, Grandpa?" she asked, looking at the little girl in my arms in that old photograph. And I told her all of it. The ridge, the lull in the fighting, the chocolate bar, the letter that came 30 years later. I watched her face while I told it, watched her understand the way only a child can sometimes understand the important things without needing them explained twice. When I finished, she didn't say anything for a long moment, Then she reached over and put her hand on top of mine, right on top of that old photograph, and said, "I'm glad you showed me, Grandpa. She shouldn't just live in your wallet. She should live somewhere people know her story too." I hadn't thought of it that way in 44 years. That photograph wasn't just something I was carrying. It was somebody I'd been keeping to myself, when maybe what she deserved all along was to be known. If you've got something like that, an object, a photograph, a memory you've kept folded up and hidden for reasons you can't quite explain even to yourself, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe and sit with me through more of these stories, because I think we owe it to the people in our memories, even the ones we only knew for 10 minutes on a cold ridge, to let them be known by somebody besides just us. Because I've come to believe something these last 2 months since my great-granddaughter sat across that kitchen table from me. A memory kept in complete secret doesn't honor the person in it. It just keeps them as alone in death as that little girl might have felt in those hard years after the war. My great-granddaughter used that photograph in her school project, typed up the story just the way I told her, printed the photograph alongside it. Best as the old thing could still be reproduced after 44 years of folding. Her teacher called it the best project in the class. I don't know about that. I just know it felt like something had finally been let out of a box. It had been shut up in far too long. I framed a copy of that photograph last month. First time in 74 years it's existed anywhere, except folded up small enough to hide. It sits on my mantle now, next to a photograph of Ruth, next to photographs of my children when they were young. I still think about that little girl. Most days, I think about her mother, whose name I never learned and never will now. But it's a different kind of thinking now. Less like carrying a secret, more like keeping a memory the way memories are supposed to be kept, out where the light can reach them. I'm 92 years old, and I spent nearly half my life keeping a photograph nobody ever saw, telling myself I was protecting something by keeping it hidden. I understand now I had it backward the whole time. Some things get heavier the longer you carry them alone. They only get lighter once you let somebody else help hold them. If there's a photograph in your own family tucked away in a drawer or a wallet with a story nobody's heard, I hope you'll ask about it while there's still somebody around who can tell it. And I hope you'll tell me about it too down in the comments. I read every one, and I'd consider it an honor to know the story you're carrying. I've got more photographs like this one, more stories that have sat folded up too long. I think it's time I started letting the light reach all of them.